un gars d'ici, être le directeur de général des Canadiens est une occasion d'une vie.
Enjoy the moment, you're in the NHL here.
Working for the Montreal Canadiens is a dream. La plus grande franchise dans la histoire du hockey.
If it was my last day on this planet, and you told me what would you like to do, I want to be in that building on a Saturday night.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. It's Devin. The playoffs are over, so we are back. We're going to do a show today. So welcome to HABS Therapy Day, votre émission de hockey hebdomadaire, interactive et 100% bilingue, focused on the Montreal Canadiens. No hot takes, no fake hype, not just real talk. Pas de sensationnalisme, pas de rumeurs débiles, juste des analyses franches, réfléchies et bien sourcées. We love the Habs, but we're not here to drink the Kool-Aid. On adore nos glorieux, mais on n'est pas ici pour tous les flatter à tout prix. This is a space for fans who want to go deeper. Tactics, trends, tough questions, un endroit pour les passionnés qui veulent creuser. Tactique, tendance, débat intelligent. We've got sharp takes, not cheap ones. Des points de vue solides, pas de complaisance. So if you're looking for a smarter way to talk Habs, sans le bruit, sans le bordel, vous êtes au bon endroit. This is HABS Therapy Day. Let's get into it. Bienvenue à HABS Therapy Day. On commence maintenant. Today, guys, we have a very special guest on the show. Jérôme Bérubé is the director of scouting at hockeyprospects.com. He is one of my favorite draft experts. It's very much our privilege to have him on the show. While I don't always agree with everything he says, there's never any doubt that his opinions and analysis are based on hard work and supported by evidence. You can check out Hockey Prospects' annual draft guide at hockeyprospects.com. And for the French speakers out there, you can watch his draft prospect summaries on TikTok. His account is Zone Junior, and he's posted videos for most of the draft's top 20 players, and I'm sure he has many more to come. So let's bring Jérôme onto the show. There you go. Merci beaucoup, Jérôme, d'avoir pris le temps de nous rejoindre pendant cette période de l'année qui doit sûrement être très chargée pour vous. On vous apprécie et j'ai bien hâte de vous parler au sujet des Canadiens et le repêchage de la semaine prochaine. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me on, and looking forward to have this conversation.
I am as well. Normally, I would spend some time, maybe having some get to know each other kind of questions, but I know your time is limited, so I won't waste it, and we'll get right to the meat of things. So I think that for me, it's always important, I think, for me and for fans to understand where the information they're getting is coming from. So maybe before we get right into the draft, maybe you can give us a bit of an idea of where your analysis comes from. What's your process, and how is it that you come up with the scouting analysis that you come up with through hockeyprospects.com, and even when you do your own stuff?
Yeah. Okay. We do watch a lot of hockey, so that's the number one thing. So let's take example this draft class. A lot of players in this class we have watched for 2 years, sometimes even 3 years. So we do have a lot of data to, and by that I mean information, what we have seen on the ice, what we have seen X player improving or not improving. So that does help us, to start the draft here. We have, a base of information that we have already at the start of the year. But at the same time, as I mentioned, we do watch a lot of hockey because players change. It's not because they're at this level at 16 years old. At 17, it might completely change for the good or for the bad. So if players change, I think as scout, you need to change your evaluation as well. So you can't have an ego in scouting. So because you might be like, I said this about this player in August, and then you're in December and it has completely changed. I don't know why, but like it's I feel the last few years, like players are changing really fast. Like you you I'll give you an example. Okay, Uri Safkasi. It's a Montreal Canadiens podcast. So I remember watching him in his draft year, and there was a certain play he was not able to make. It was like taking the puck down low, skating where the face-off circle, and turning inside and trying to shoot on net. For whatever reason, he was really struggling with his shot when he was doing that exact play. And we watched him in Finland try that play, and his shot was not looking good every time he did that play. For his shot was weak, or the angle at he was taking the shot at was not good. And I remember me and one of my colleagues, we watch him like shoot the puck nonstop. We're like, what's going on here? And he goes to the Olympic, and he actually scored 1 or 2 goals doing that exact same play.
Yeah.
So you can't say to a player, oh, you can't do that play, and then you have to again keep watching. If they improve certain parts of their game. So that's an example with Slavkovsky, but it happens all the time.
Yeah,
so.
it's interesting you say that. Like you talk about how players can change through the year. I'm in Halifax and a former season ticket of the Moosehead, season ticket holder of the Mooseheads. We've had a couple guys in the last few years who have really made huge jumps in their draft years. Jonathan Drouin was one who went very high, and he made a big jump through his draft year. Nico Hischier would be another one who, like you say, at the beginning of the year, nobody would have put those guys anywhere near the top of the draft, but by the end of the season, they certainly made huge adjustments and changed their game. And I like that you say that you can't have an ego as a scout, because I think there's a lot of scouts out there who get very attached. And when I say scouts, I mean like scouts who are doing this in the public, who get very attached to their picks or their ideas, and they find it very hard to sort of move off of them, and sometimes that can affect the value of what they're providing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to be confident in your analysis, so I get it. But like I said, like players do change. Sometimes you're gonna watch a player in the first half of the season, you're like, I wouldn't even want to draft him. And then second half of the season, you're like, you're trying to push him as high as possible on your list, because like there was like a switch that was turned for him.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so happens every year. So you have to be, as a scout, I think you have to be careful at that.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about the draft guide that you guys have put out this year at hockeyprospects.com is the floor and the ceiling. And I think that's a new thing this year, where you've assessed all of the prospects, where their floor is and where their ceiling is. Maybe you can tell us why am I correct that that's a new thing for you guys this year?
I think it's the second year.
Second year. Okay. What is it that made you guys? I think that's kind of unique. You guys are unique in that, and I think for me that's always been something that I've kind of looked at when I look at prospects is, it's great to say that this guy can become that, but to understand where their floor is and where their ceiling is sometimes can allow us as fans to assess that player even better. What is it that made you guys do that? I mean, maybe that's what I've just explained, but how do you go about determining the floor and the ceiling?
Yeah, so floor ceiling was 2 category. We have like a rating system with like hockey sense, compete, skating, skill, miscellaneous. So we wanted to add maybe 2 more ratings to that. So I think it does explain a bit some of the thought process that we have to go through. For example, X player, super talented, we gave him a 8 rating. But we know that there's some risk for that player. So the floor will not be as high, because there's a risk of, okay, this might work, or this might just not work for him at the NHL level, and he might just be a guy that is stuck in the American Hockey League or go plays overseas. So that was just, we wanted to add two ratings just to explain a bit more the thought process that we have. And if you read the profile, you're going to say, oh, this guy's got really good upside, the skill level is good, so why is he not ranked higher on your list? And so that's if it's a low ratings for floor, that might explain the ranking a bit better.
Yeah, I really like it. I mean, for me, it's great to know the boom or bust of that. Whether he's a guy, especially this year where the Canadians are picking, not as high as they have in the last few years, and they're at 16 or 17. You want to know like whether this guy is a guy who is going to be a steady guy who you can be pretty confident that this is what he's going to become, or whether they're swinging for the fences with this particular guy, and he may become awesome, but his floor might be a little bit more risky. And I really appreciate that. As somebody who kind of probably spends a little bit more time than the average fan looking at it, it is definitely a helpful tool to have, and I appreciate it a lot. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's, and you just mentioned a boom bust type player. Like the Canadiens have 2 first-round picks, so maybe they'll be more willing to take a player that maybe is a bit risky. Right. But it's sometimes when you just have 1 first-round pick, you're like, I don't really want to miss on that player. Usually you're going to take more risk in the second round. Piquet Subban was a bit of that back in 2007. And so, but if you have 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks, sometimes you can, be willing to make those picks, a bit more.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like you say, this year, the Canadians I expect the Canadians will probably look to get some guy who the Canadians are pretty risk averse to begin with. They don't like to take a ton of risk, and I mean they definitely do their homework as much or more than any other organization. And I think that when they do make their picks, they'll be quite confident in them. So I don't think there's going to be a sense that they're really taking a huge risk. But at the same time, at 16 and 17, it's a lot different story than it is when you're at number 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk specifically about the Canadians then now. If the Canadians did, there's obviously, talk that, they might either trade these draft picks for an established player. They might try and move up in the draft. I don't expect they'll try and move down. I don't know whether they'll be able to move up in the draft. Obviously, it's easier said than done. But if they did try to move up, or if they were going to move up in the draft, is there anybody you sort of identify at the beginning of the draft that probably won't be around at 16 and 17 that the Canadians would? I mean, obviously the obvious name I think is probably Caleb Desnoyers. Everyone's talking about him. But is there, beyond him, or even, including him, is there anybody that you see sort of, I guess I would say maybe like in the top 10 or 12 that the Canadians would be interested enough in that they would think about trying to move up, either moving 16 and 17 or some other asset?
Yeah. I mean, they're still looking for a center. It's been, is not sure if Michael Age will be, that answer going forward. I mean, probably more of a winger for me. So you might want to look at some of the center, but I feel like the center, they will go pretty high in the draft. I mean, it's tough to find good center, so that's why I think.
Yeah, you're probably going to see after Schaefer, you're probably going to see probably at least six of the next 7 guys will probably all be centermen, I would think.
Yeah, I mean Misa, Frondell, Martin, O'Brien, Desnoyers, Higgins.
Yeah.
So McQueen. I mean, there's some risk with McQueen. So yeah, I think they should. I mean, I think Brady Martin would be probably an amazing fit for them. He's really like a Sam Bennett type player. So he could be, but he's gonna. My guess he's gonna go really high. So unless the Canadians move in the top 5, top 6, top 7. I don't think they're getting him.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same answer for Desnoyers. He's probably gonna go in the top 5, top 7. So I don't know if the Canes are gonna be able to move in the top 5, 7. I think unless they trade like a real good roster player from their team, but I don't think a team that is drafting the top 7 will want to swap picks and end up being 16, 17. It's just the depth of the draft is just not. Yeah. It's not worth it, I think. So, tough. It's really tough to predict a bit like what could happen. I mean, as you said, it's a lot easier to predict when they're drafting top 5, like we've seen in the past 2 years.
Yeah, and I kind of identified Brady Martin as well earlier on, but if you went back a month and a half ago, Brady Martin was sitting sort of around 9, 10, 11. And now people are talking about him possibly going, in the top 3 or 4 even, or the top 5. And I think it would have been a lot easier for the Canadians to try and, trade up to 10 or 11, certainly than it is for them to get into the top 5. And I think, like you say, the same for Caleb Desnoyers. What about Radim Mrtka? Do you see him being somebody that the Canadians, I mean, obviously their other need is right-handed defensemen, particularly with size. Is that somebody you see them maybe moving up to try and get?
Yeah, I could see it. They kind of drafted the Reinbacher pick was pretty much like you can make a lot of you can compare both players. So they're pretty similar. So yeah, I could see Montreal going after Mrtka. Like he's pretty raw still. But I feel like he's pretty safe too. Like a bit like Reinbacher was back in his draft year.
Right.
Unfortunately he got hurt. If not for that injury, I think he probably would have played in the NHL last season.
Right.
So I think Mrtka is pretty safe. I mean, he's 6'6". He's smart. He defends well. He skates well for a 6'6" guy. He's still pretty green, so he's only gonna get better. So you're not drafting him to be like your number 1 power play guy.
Right.
I mean, Montreal doesn't really need that. They know who they have as the number 1 power play guy. So yeah, I mean, he would be a great fit if they move up. But I think he will go pretty high. Like I'm thinking top 10 here.
Yeah. So he's, again, getting back to your conversation where we talked about earlier about ceiling and floor. Like, would you see Mrtka being like, if he takes off, being a guy who could be a first pairing guy, but his floor is pretty safe, where even if he doesn't sort of blow up or whatever, he's still a guy who will be pretty safe either in a second or bottom pairing.
Oh yeah. I think that's what attracts NHL team to him. Like they know it's going to take a bit of a time, like maybe 2 years before he's like really challenging for an NHL spot.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine him, busting. Like he has too much going on for him. Like the only thing I would say is like, I think I wish he was a bit meaner, more physical, but he's only really starting to like figure things out on the ice. So
figure out his body.
I think long term he's going to be a good one.
Okay. So let's talk about the guys. So I guess I'm going to ask you about the players who you see being available at 16 and 17 that makes sense for Montreal. But just our conversation we've had already kind of brings me to one of the guys I've identified that may or may not be available. Hopefully he will, because he's a guy I like. Is Carter Bear. And obviously, we know Carter Bear has an injury, with his Achilles issue. He apparently is back skating. But that's one of I think his injury, we both agree, is one of the reasons why he's being even considered to be a possibility at 16 or 17. If he didn't have that injury, he'd probably be a guy who'd be, probably close to somewhere between 8 and 12. I think that's probably maybe even higher. I don't know. You can tell me if I'm wrong. But I guess the question, I mean, you can answer that as well. I guess how do you, like, injury aside, how do you compare him to Caleb Desnoyers and Brady Martin? Are they similar players in what they bring? Again, assuming that his injury isn't something that you're concerned about.
Yeah. So I Carter Bear is my favorite player in the draft.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I wouldn't rank him first overall, but like guys I like to watch play,
Right.
and uh, he's like my number one guy. I thought he was incredible in the first half of the season. A bit of a dip in the second half, but I really like the way he plays. It's just hard to find guys like him, and I would
Hmm.
say the same thing about Brady Martin. They're just. I mean, they're not the biggest guy, right? They're both 6 feet, so they're not like they're not 6'4", 220, but they play like they are. But they have this, mental, mindset how they play, and it's very playoff. It has really huge playoff value for me. And when we do our rankings and how we scout, we do like the playoff matters a lot more than I would say maybe some other rankings do. We have James Haggins a lot lower than other people, and that's one reason why we value the guys in front of him with their playoff style a lot more than Haggins. And Bear, just the injury, just it's really like really bad news for him because I think he was a lock for top 10. Um, he does play a bit like Brendan Gallagher, but he's 6 feet. He's better skater than Gallagher, and it's probably more natural talent also than Gallagher. But like his mindset, the going to the net hard and getting in people's face, it's very Gallagher like.
Right.
I do have. I mean, our final list we had to move Bear a bit down because of the injury, but without the injury, like he would be ranked uh, not far from where Brady Martin is, so in the top 7 and ahead of Dinwiddie for me. So
Right. So you've got Martin at 4, you have Desnoyers at 7, and you have Bear at 10.
yeah,
So even with the injury, it sounds like you don't see a huge gap between those guys.
yeah.
Do you think he'll be there at 16? Like, will that be? Are we? I mean, are we? I mean, you have him ranked higher, I think, than a lot of other outlets do. Um, but most of the other outlets sort of have him anywhere sort of between sort of 13, 14 to 17 or
Mhm.
18. So he's right on that cusp. Is it? I mean, again, he's one of my favorite players too, and I think I would love to see the Canadians, get an opportunity to pick him. But um, what do you
Yeah, I
think?
don't know. I don't know. It's a really tough. It's really tough to answer that one because like we don't know how teams are feeling. Like, uh, I mean, if he's there at 16, I would like run to the stage to
Yeah,
draft him. I
yeah,
mean, technically the team won't not be at the draft.
yeah.
They'll be but yeah, I would like run to the stage to draft him. And if he's there at 16, the only reason why will be the injury.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm no doctor, so I have no idea. But
Right.
I was told it was not as bad as Peyton Krebs back in 2019.
It's only a partial
So
partial tear, I think, is what I had heard, as opposed to a
yeah,
full tear.
so he's like you said, he's back skating.
Right.
He has no power. Like he said, I have no power in my leg,
Yeah.
so he's gonna need the summer to get back fully. But um, yeah, if he's there at 16, there's no.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
yeah,
You
that's the
you
pick for me.
yeah. You
Yeah,
don't hesitate.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, I think, as you said, I mean, I think he not only does he have that playoff sort of does he have that appearance of being a playoff style guy, he also seems to fit the pedigree of what the Canadians seem to like with this new organization, with the new management. Like you say, character, intelligence, hardworking, those kind of guys. And I think he certainly fits that bill.
yeah.
And as I understand it, he did well. He's a quiet kid, I think, but He's a thoughtful kid, and I think he did well in his interviews from what I've followed from the
He's
combine.
quiet. He's quiet off the ice, but not on the
Not
ice.
on
On
the
the ice,
ice.
he does talk a lot.
Does it? Okay, well, good. Talks with his
Yeah,
talks with his game in it.
yeah.
Um, so again, let's we'll both keep our fingers crossed that that Carter Bear is available at 16 for Montreal. I mean, I've got a list of guys that I've sort of identified. I won't give them to you because I don't want to sort of sway your answer. I don't expect I would sway your answer anyway. But are there other names that sort of are? You said Carter Bear is your favorite. Who are other guys that you really like as options for the Canadians at that pick?
Well, it's okay. I'll give you Lyndon Lakovic, and it's not like I really love him. Like I've over the years, I kind of learned that if a player play one like a certain way in junior, they're not. It's really rare that they're gonna completely change their game or their mindset. So Lakovic, on talent alone, is a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
He's big, he's fast, he really can pass the puck. He's got a good shot. It doesn't shoot enough, but he has a good shot. But I think he's more of a playmaker than a sniper. My problem with him is the compete. Sometimes
right.
it's very up and down, and sometimes he's a bit too passive. So that bothers me because I'm not too crazy about 6'4" player that don't like. I'll take a 5'11" guy who competes or instead of a 6'4" guy that does not compete.
Yeah, Carter Bear
Um,
or Brady Martin.
yeah. So I think Montreal have a few of those 6'4" guy that.
Well, that's
So,
that's what I was going to
yeah.
say. When I hear you say that, and when I read the profiles, your profiles and others, the name that comes to mind to me is Yuri Slavkovsky.
Mm,
As a guy who's big, but doesn't necessarily use his size to his advantage. Although Slavkovsky's obviously, hopefully, getting better at that. What I like too is in your report on him, one of your other scouts, I think, it referred to the fact that he's self-aware. He knows that that's a problem, right? It's not like
yeah.
he's a kid who's not capable of it. He knows it's a problem, and he does want to fix it. Self-awareness, I think, is a huge quality in any prospect.
Mm,
That they understand what their warts are, what their problems are, and they're prepared to work on it. And yeah, Uri Slavkovsky. When I read his profile, Lakovic's profile, it sounds very much to me like Uri Slavkovsky. Also, perhaps like Beckett Seneca, as a kid who, um, you know, his big body is kind of new to him, and he's not
mm,
really used to it yet. Like he's used to being a smaller kid, and that's where he gets all his skill and his talent. But he's not used to being the big guy who can throw his body around, and maybe he needs to just sort of mature into that. But again, we can't predict the future.
yeah.
Um, and
Listen, like it's not like I'm the president of his fan club, but
right,
at 16, 17, with his skill level, um you could you know I think it would be a good bet for the Canes to make at that point, depending like how the draft goes. But we'll see, I guess. But he has like good tools, but they sometimes they just don't change. So I
yeah,
mean, sometimes they do, like, but it's pretty like it's. I mean, I'm gonna say a random number here, but like I would, there's no data behind this, but I would say 95% of the time, players who are categorized as soft in junior, they don't end up being really tough to play against at the NHL level.
you'd
So
rather you'd rather they have to work on their skating or their shot than on their compete level
yeah,
or
you
their
don't you don't you don't need to tell Carter Bear or Denoyer or Brady Martin like
yeah,
show up tonight, play hard. So
yeah.
that's the my question I would have with him. But if he's aware of this, and I know at the combine, I think pretty much every team did ask him about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's no
there you
hiding
go.
at the combine, is there? If you've got problems in your game, they're not gonna
No,
be polite about it. They're gonna
no,
let you know and ask you about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Any
sure.
anybody else at 16, 17 that you see as being fits for Montreal? I mean, I've got guys like Rashny, Hensler, Coots, uh, like how does Justin Carbonneau compare to Lakovic? I know, at this stage of the draft, you're usually dealing with guys who have sort of pretty good profile, but there's one or two concerns. When you're in the top 4 or 5, you get guys who are pretty solid across the board.
Mm.
I think with Carbonneau, what I'm hearing is that he's a bit of a cocky kid, and sometimes he makes some bad decisions. With obviously with Lakovic, it's his compete level. But what are you how would you compare those two guys?
Well, Carbonneau has probably one of the better shot in the draft. I think him and Frondel are probably top two as far shooting ability, scoring ability. Like Carbonneau is very dynamic, so he's kind of the complete opposite of Desnoyers. Desnoyers is very complete, very smart, but not very dynamic offensively. And Carbonneau is very dynamic, but he has after that it's a big question mark. Um, it's not like he doesn't compete, but he's I would say the hockey IQ is very questionable. Like I would say it's below average. I don't really like how he some of his body language has been a bit of question mark for me. Like when the teammates miss a play or something like that. And yeah, not the smartest player. Like playmaking wise, it, it's a bit of a problem for me. So we do value hockey IQ a lot when we do our rankings, and that's a reason why he's not that high on our list. So
And I think it's interesting that you say that, because when you say that, I think about the Canadians as a team, and the conversations that go on about the Canadians. And the Canadians want smart hockey players, right? They're playing a more complicated system. When you hear Marty St. Louis talk after a game, a lot of times, was he always talking about not doing things that hurt your team, right? And to me, that's a lot about hockey IQ and your smarts and how well you play. And when I hear about a guy who is a dynamic player but not much else, and perhaps he's not a guy who's going to adapt very well to defensive systems and transition play and stuff like that, then it kind of scares me a little
yeah,
bit when I hear that about a guy like Carbonneau.
yeah. I mean, it's too bad because the talent is there, and I
Yeah.
thought he would. I thought like at the start of the year, I thought he would have made more progress with that, but mostly like his defensive play away from the puck, and he just didn't. So
Yeah.
you always want to see guys improve to a degree some of their weakness, and I just didn't see it with him this season.
Okay. I mean, I like I said, I've got Rashny, Hensler, Coots. I mean, guys who I see as some reaches. I know you guys rate Kurban Limitov really high.
Mm.
You've got him sort of in that range. Vaclav Nestrasil, Malcolm
Yeah.
Spence is a guy who I think is a really interesting choice. I mean, he might be too much of a reach at this point. Any of those guys stand out to
Yeah.
you?
I mean, I love Reshny, but I just don't think he's that good of a fit for Montreal. I mean, if they pick him, fine, and then see what happens in 2 years where your team is at. But he's a center slash winger that is undersized, not the best right now, not the best skating. We'll see in 2 years because his skating technically is good. It's just the
Mhm.
power. He has no power, so.
Yeah.
He's off to college now, so hopefully he can get stronger and add a bit more power to his stride. I like you mentioned him, but I really like Nestrasil.
Okay.
Big power forward from Czechia, but plays in the USHL. Really physical. Like actually, like I kind of like in the book I did compare him to Josh Anderson.
Yep.
A bit
Okay.
different because of the skating is not the same, but and he's a bit smarter than Josh with the playmaking. Like he's a really good passer. So obviously we all know playmaking has never been Josh's best asset.
Not lately.
Um, but like just the way he plays physical is very like he on the forecheck he's a beast. and you really talk about guys improving during the year. Like he's one of them. He really improved from from December on. He was pretty much a point per game player in the USHL. But before that, he was very far from being a point per game player. So
Right.
big time improvement. He also changed a bit of his style of play. He became way more physical. I don't know. I think maybe his coach got into his ear at some point and explained to him like, this is how you need to play. And sometimes it takes a while for players to understand the game they need to play. So good for him, because it completely changes his season. You can look at, because before that, until December, he was playing more of a skill puck possession game, and after that, he was just a complete beast. Using his size, hitting guys, sometimes borderline dirty.
Which
But
is not too bad.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care.
Canadians need a little bit of that, I think.
Yeah, so I think he would be a great fit for Montreal. I don't know if 16 or 17 is too high for them to pick him.
Yeah.
So, but again, guys like him, there's not many. There's not many guys like him. Shane Van Saggy is another guy in that same mold.
Okay.
So, if you look at really physical guy that the Habs should have more on the roster, you have Brady Martin, Carter Bear, and then you can have Nestrasil, Van Saggy, but they're not the level of talent is a bit, they're not going to be top six forward. They're more like third line guys. So
What
maybe you trade down.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. What about Malcolm Spence? I know he's a guy who's kind of gone up and down a little bit. For me, I like the guy. He's a big kid. He struggled a little bit at the beginning of the season. As I've only recently found out, apparently he had an injury to his tongue or something at the beginning of the year, where he lacerated his tongue, and he wasn't able to eat. And I think Scott Wheeler was saying something about that. He found that out at the combine, and he lost like 20 pounds and whatever. But he had a much better second half of the season. Apparently Erie isn't a great place to play hockey. If you're an offensive hockey player, he's heading to Michigan to play with Michael Hage, who I also understand is a good friend of his. They grew up near to one another. So he's a guy who's been intriguing to me as well. And I know you guys have him. Where do you guys have him? You have him
22.
Yeah, 22. So another guy who's interesting to me, left-handed, maybe center, maybe winger. I don't know. What are your thoughts on him?
It's funny you talk about his injury, because I didn't know about it, but I remember we watched him in the first half and we're like, what's going on? Because he looked like he had like his stamina was really low. Like he would like play 25 seconds and he was like done. Like physically, he looked like he had no energy. We're like, what is going on? I mean, we're like very curious about this. Usually in junior, you can play 45, 50, even more, even sometimes a minute, and it doesn't really show. And in this case, like it was like 30 seconds and you're like, okay. But yeah, he would be a good option for Montreal. Smart player. I would say one of the best defensive player in the draft. So again, we'll talk about ceiling, floor. Like his floor is pretty good. Because even if the offense doesn't translate as a top six guy, I think he can be a good third line player with really good value away from the puck on the PK. And I think he's the kind of guy you can move around in your lineup a bit on any line, depending on like what you need. So my only question about him is, well, I guess two questions. I wish he was a bit meaner, and I wish the offense was a bit better. Like I feel like he is. That's why I don't know if he's a top six guy. I think he's more of a, third line, middle six guy that get you between 30 and 45 point, which is not bad.
Yeah.
In this draft, it's trust me, it's not bad. And I think he could be a good option for Montreal if they keep one of those two picks.
I wrote in my notes, and you can tell me if I'm crazy or not. I wrote that he's a poor man's Nick Suzuki.
well, I don't want to say you're crazy, but that's a bit of a. I would
But
say it's a bit of a reach for me.
but a two-way guy who can play anywhere in the lineup, can be your shutdown defensive forward if you need him, but can also give you some offense. Again, maybe a poor man's Nick Suzuki if he reaches his ceiling, I guess, is maybe a little.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I don't know. I get what you're saying with the you can trust this guy defensively. So if you say he's like a third line Nick Suzuki, maybe I would.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I have a couple more questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's go.
So last year, the Canadians, I don't want to say they surprised everybody by selecting Ivan Demidov, but they certainly, they had their mind made up, it seems, long before the draft about who they wanted, who their number one guy was, and who they've targeted and whatever. They obviously we mentioned earlier they're a team that puts in the work. They're very 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 thorough. Whether they're interviewing players who they absolutely have no chance of drafting. They're doing all of their due diligence. We even know last year they didn't attend the Gold Star combine, if you want to call it that, just to not let anybody know that they were interested in Demidov. And I know the dynamic's different with them picking a little later in the. Do you get a sense? And I don't know. I mean, I know you scout around Quebec, and I'm sure you run into people from the Canadiens organization. Do you get a sense that this is a scenario where they have specific players that they've targeted, that they have in mind, or are they just sort of waiting to see how it plays out and who's available for them at 16?
For sure, they have their targets, but yeah, I mean, I guess what they're doing from since the combine is trying to predict the draft. So they're trying to predict which team is gonna pick which player. So that's a tough part. Like you can have your own targets, but you don't. And when you're drafting 16, 17, that's gonna be a long wait to get to your pick. And if you have a guy really high on your list and you're just hoping no one takes him, that's the for a team, when you work for a team, that's the part that kind of like is like a bit nerve wracking on draft night. You have your guy and he's not getting taken, and then
Michael Hage the same way, right? They moved up at the last minute to make sure that they could get Hage where they wanted, and he was clearly a guy that they identified as well. Is there a sense from you that there's? I mean, I know they're pretty tight-lipped, and it's not like you're sitting in it's not like you're sitting at the arena in Quebec City, and the scouts are telling you who they're looking at. But is there any sense at all that there's anybody that they particularly love? I mean, I know that's
No, I don't know, but you can get a sense on if you like follow the draft and you watch what a team does in the past few years, you can see a trend in what type of player they like. So I know Murka. He did say that he did meet with Montreal, often this year, and they came to see him play really often. I think Lakovic did say that the Canadiens came to see him practice in Moose Jaw. So like you don't go to Moose Jaw just for fun.
It's not easy to get there.
So I mean that may be two options they're looking at, but at the end of the day, nobody knows. So if you work for an NHL team, and you're telling like me or who you like in the draft, like
you're not working there for very long.
You're an idiot.
And you're not working there for very long.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to my next question is, so you're right. I think you're absolutely right. The Canadiens have certainly demonstrated under their new management that they have a type, right? They talk often about, I mentioned it earlier, kids with character, kids who do well in the interview, kids who have that compete, kids who have we see it from Demidov. I know we saw the videos of Jacob Fowler's interview and how they liked his attitude and his personality. Michael Hage, the story with his father and his attitude. They like guys who sort of have a little something special, right? There's a type there for sure. is there anybody in the draft this year, whether it's in the early part of the draft or even later in the draft, who you see as being that real character kid who, might appeal to the Canadians? Carter Bear, we talked to, you might be that kind of kid, but like a kid who just will wow you with his personality and be a guy who, like I said, Fowler was a guy who I remember watching that video of his draft interview, and even Demidov, when they asked him, are we crazy if we don't draft you at number 5? And he's like, yeah, you're crazy. Is that kid is that kid out there I mean, I don't know
think
how much you talk to them directly, but
I think as character wise and being confident in yourself, I think I'll go with the hometown kid, Desnoyers.
Okay.
Very, really, strong character, really believe in himself, but not cocky, but just, he knows he can be a really good pick, a really good players, and like he has played on every team he has played on, they have pretty much win. So
yeah,
and he's also been a big reason why they win. He's always been like the top player. So before going to Moncton, he won midget AAA championship in Quebec.
yeah,
Then he won in Moncton. He won at U17 level, the U18, the Olinka tournament. So
yeah.
he's a winner. I like him. To me, he's a bit lower on my list because offensively, I think he's a bit I would say limited compared to other guys in front of him. But if he becomes a true good number 2 center for Montreal, that's a great fit. But again, it's gonna be tough to move up. So
Yeah, I actually followed that team. I mean, I'm in Halifax, but a really good friend of mine who I went to law school with, his son was on that Moncton Wildcats team. So I actually followed it quite closely. Desnoyers is a really fun player to watch, and I think, yeah, he's an all around kid, and I think he's interesting. Is there anybody sort of later in the draft that the Canadians might actually, again, you may not know, and I don't know how often you actually get to talk to the kids like one on one. Like, is there like, I mean,
well,
we hear about kids doing well in their interviews, but is there?
yeah, I think I mean the feedback I got from the combine was like there's a ton of good kids.
Yeah.
There's like a few guys that I heard like the interview went not good.
Okay.
But in general, a lot of good kids, confident, but the word I got from scouts is that they're really fun to talk to.
Yeah.
So some of them, like the interview, they know they can't draft them because they're gonna go before their pick, but they still had a good time interviewing them. If you look like Brendan Coots, he's already the captain of his junior team.
Right.
So
There's another kid who could be a poor man's Nick Suzuki, maybe a little bit.
yeah, I don't know if like I think he projects as a third line center.
Yeah.
Very smart, very good playoff value. Skates well, plays hard. He's got a good shot. But if let's say if we're Montreal, like you have Kapanen, you have Jake Evans, you have Owen Beck. All the same type of player. If Coots was 6'3", it would be
Yeah.
a difference. But he's a 5'11"
Yeah.
center. But character wise, he's top notch.
Good compete level.
Oh yeah. He's a very high compete guy.
Because it's interesting, because like you said before, sometimes a guy who's 5'11", 6 foot with a high compete level is better than a guy who's 6'3", who doesn't
I
doesn't
agree.
want to throw a body check.
Yeah, I agree. I just think he's if you look at what the Canes have already, they don't really need another guy like this.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a center, I would try to get someone who can be a top 2 center. I don't think he's going to be that. but maybe you're going for a winger instead,
Yeah.
with more upside, to play on your top six. I don't know. It's a trick. It's a really weird draft to predict.
Yeah.
Even scouting and ranking was really really hard, this year, more than previous years, in my opinion.
There was
So
a lot of movement for sure.
yeah.
Like I said before, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I was in love with Brady Martin, and I was like, oh, he's at 11, 12, and maybe if he slides a little bit, but now, you guys have him, I think, at number 4, and it's pretty clear that he's going to be in the top 5 or 6 now, and he's like, just,
Mm,
it's been a
yeah.
lot of changes. I'll ask you a couple more quick. These are going to be some quick questions. I just want to sort of get into the later parts of the draft a little bit. Um, so I want to talk about defensemen, forwards, and goalies.
Okay.
And I want to give you maybe if I can I give you a list of maybe 5 or 6 names in each of those positions, and you can tell me which one of those guys in the later rounds would be
Yeah, sure.
your pick, best suited guys that you
Yeah.
think would be best for the Canadiens. So for defensemen, and again, I'm sort of focusing on the sort of the organizational needs with size. Obviously, right-handed is something they're looking for when it
Mm,
comes to defensemen. So I've got Carter Amico, Simon Wang, Peyton Kettles, Sean Barnhill, David Bedkowski, and Roman. I think it's Bosov.
okay.
Is there any one of those guys that you think is guy that might work out for the Canadians, might be the most interesting guy there?
I would say maybe Sean Barnhill. We have him. I think he's the highest rank on our rankings. I think he's
Yeah.
in the mid 40s. But it's pretty close. I think Bedkowski is not that far behind him.
43. Barnhill's
Yeah,
43, and
yeah.
Bedkowski's 45.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, Barnhill is actually a guy that, I mean, he's huge, 6'5", but really made some talk about guys making progress. Like he really made progress in the second half of the season, and by the end of the year, like we're like, okay, we have to move up. We have to move him up on our list because he's looking pretty good here.
Yeah. Okay, let's do the same thing for the forwards. There's one guy on here who I think is probably significantly better than the others, but I'm going to put him in there anyway. Um, Will Horkoff, Jakub Hiss Wozniak, Carter Klippenstein, Jack Nesbitt, Mason West, Daniel Prokhorov, and Bill Zonin. Is there anyone there that you think is above,
Hmm.
like, significantly? Again, looking at size, I focused on size there, and um,
I don't think so. I think they're most of those guys are pretty similar. I would say, Zonon. I like him. I like him. I wish, he was a bit meaner. Like,
I read your profile, your like not just your profile, but all of the different quotes from the
yeah,
different scouts about how he's the nicest guy in the world, and
yeah,
he doesn't capable of being mean, and and I think it was you that had a long conversation with another scout about what it, or maybe it was one of your colleagues who what it means to be mean, and how he had coached
mm,
players before who just weren't capable of it.
yeah, yeah. That's that's a number one reason he's not in our top 32. Like second half of the season, he kind of is played drop a bit, and a lot of it was because he didn't compete, as hard as, we want him to be. Um, Mason West is really interesting.
Yeah.
Really great athlete, great skater, really raw. Prokhorov in Russia is probably the most entertaining player in the whole draft. Uh, he's 6'6", skates well. He's got good hands. He's got a great shot. He's physical. So everything sounds good. He's pretty raw, and he's not much of a playmaker. He's not a good passer, and he
Doesn't
does not
pass at
pass the
all.
ball.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so like I wish the playmaking was better because he would have been way way higher on our list, but the playmaking is so bad that, also his willingness to pass the puck is so bad also
Sounds like
that,
almost like a reverse Slavkovsky. He knows how to use his body, but he doesn't know how to make plays.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you watch him score goals, you're gonna be like, whoa, who is this?
And he's great.
But
I watched a couple videos of him, like his board play, like his ability to protect the puck and his ability
it's
to win
insane.
battles is spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. Like down low, he's incredible. But
Yeah.
there's I don't think he made one successful pass that was more than 5 feet this year. Yeah.
Well, I read that and I was like, that's not possible. And it's like what somebody said is like the lowest pass completion percentage of any player that they'd like ever seen
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
No, like usually if you watch a player and if that player plays, let's say 15 minute up per game,
Yeah.
they'll make pass attempt at least 15, 20 per game on average. Maybe sometime more.
And he
This
was
kid
5.
sometimes was 5.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, before we go to the goalies, one quick one. Going back to the 16-17 pick, Hensler or Reed, who would you take over between those two?
Ensler, I think he's a pretty safe pick in the top 20. I actually think he could be an option for Montreal.
Yeah.
Not the most flashy guy, but I think he can be a top 4 D that gives you 18, 20 minutes per game.
Okay.
One guy on our staff is in huge disagreement with me on this one. He thinks he can be a first pairing defenseman.
Okay.
So we do have like even on our staff like some big time disagreement sometimes.
Is that are you factoring in his handedness there? The fact that Hensler's right-handed and Reed is left-handed, or is that
No,
completely separate from that?
We just like answer a lot more than
Okay.
Reed. We're probably the scouting staff that is the lowest on Cameron Reed. So
Okay.
so we're not too big on him.
Okay, and the last one I want to get into is the goalies. I don't know if you agree with me on this. I think that the Canadians have a bit of a lack of organizational depth when it comes to goalies, especially when it's when you get past Montembeault and Dobash and Fowler, there's not really a whole lot there. I mean, one of those guys, Volokin or Vekvanix, or one of those guys could turn into something. Who knows? But I guess the first question is, do you think it would be worthwhile for them to use a pick on a goalie this year? And second, if I gave you, I really find there's an intriguing group of Russian goalies this year.
Every year.
Every year, I suppose. Particularly Andreanov and Frolov are interesting because their profile reminds me a little bit about some of the things we talked about. Obviously they're made on the same level, but similar things that we talked about with Jacob Fowler when he was being drafted, right? Not really in shape, but really a lot of raw talent, good reflexes, but, for lack of a better word, a little out of shape, chubby, am I off track with that? Or are those good comparisons?
No. I love Andrianov. Like even better, he's not in shape and he's that good already.
Right.
Like what is he gonna look like when he's like in real NHL shape?
Yeah.
It's a bit like Fowler. Fowler was like out of shape, but he could have been in better shape in his draft year, but he was still really good.
And he went and got right? And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, Andreanov is really the only question I have for him is like how tall is he? Like he's listed at 6 feet, but some place they have him at 6'2". We watch him and like I can't believe he would be 6'2", but
is he a Gold Star guy? He wasn't at the Gold Star camp?
Maybe I don't remember.
Okay.
I hope he's at that Russian camp, so we'll know for sure.
So I have like him and Frolov and Medvedev and Radkov. Radkov seems like a real long shot, kind of like raw kind of guy. Not Russian, actually, Belarusian, but similar, I guess. Are any of those guys like? I don't know. Are you the goalie guy?
No. My colleague Brad is the real goalie guy.
Yeah.
If they want to hear Brad talk, we did record like a podcast on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
We went through every goalie in our book. I was the host. I was just asking questions, and Brad would just would talk like nonstop is goalies. So
That's what goalie guys do. They talk.
Yeah.
Like goalies, and they talk forever. So yeah, I know you love Andrianov. Is the other guys? Are they? I mean, again, I'm not saying pick them with 41 or 49, but I mean, if they can get them in the third or fourth round.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be there. I think they'll go pretty soon.
Oh, really?
In the draft, yeah. I think maybe Ravensburgen goes in the first round, and the two Russian probably in the top between top 50, I would say.
Ahead of Ivan Kovic as well, you think, eh?
Yeah, we're not too big on Ivan Kovic, but Ivan Kovic will probably go in the second round too, or if not third round. But we're not too crazy about Ivan Kovic. We think he's a bit, overrated. So,
yeah. Do you have any thoughts on the goalies the Canadians do have in their organization? I'm sure you scouted Conte Miller and.
Yeah, I watched. I know it's Conte Miller.
It's weird to call him that. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, the injury have been a tough break for him the last 2 years. So I didn't watch him. I didn't watch him this year basically because he didn't play in the queue, and then he went in the BCHL. I know he did really well there.
And he's going to the States now too, is he not?
Yeah, he's going to Denver University, which
will be good for him.
Big time program. So that's awesome for him. That new CHL NCAA rule is for goalies. It's like the best thing for Canadian goalie in the CHL. It's the best thing.
Yeah.
More time to develop and get better, because goalies it always takes more time, and the development system in Canada was just not made for goalies. It was just
no. Yeah. Well, and that's it's I think that's probably one of the reasons why we've seen such a fall when it comes to the production of Canadian goalies of late. But you're right. This CHL NCAA situation will probably help that, right? Because a kid like Miller looked like he was kind of dead in the water and his career was done, and now he can almost start all over again. Even a guy like Vic Vanix can now go to the Quebec League and maybe revive something there. I don't know whether I guess he's going to be in Newfoundland, not Bathurst, but it'd be interesting to see what he does. So yeah. Anyways, man, I really appreciate it. I apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but it was a real pleasure to talk to you. We didn't really talk in French at all. I know we said we were going to, but no, that was great. I really appreciate being able to hear what you have to say and get the benefit of your expertise. And I certainly enjoy reading your hockey prospect. It used to be called the Black Book. I guess it's now called what is it? The
Breakdown.
I've been reading it for years. I started reading your the one you guys used to do for the Quebec League.
I was in charge of that one from
So I did
2013 to 2019.
Well, and those were sort of prime Moosehead years, right? So I was always keen to see what you guys thought of, the guys who might, Jonathan Drouin and all kinds of those young guys. But it's great to talk to you in person. Maybe we can do it again sometime. I know you're going to be busy between now and next weekend, but I'm sure you do enjoy it. You wouldn't be doing this if you didn't enjoy it. But it was great to talk to you. And I don't know if you have anything else to plug or anything, feel free. I also love watching your videos on TikTok too. They're very informative.
No, people can just follow my work if they want on TikTok. TikTok is just for fun, basically. Just trying to get more French content because I work in English with hockey prospects. So just I don't know, try to get more French media, like French content on the draft. If not, they can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, but Blue Sky is not really.
I wish it would take off more, but it's I'm not a big fan of Twitter, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah, I wish Blue Sky was more popular because like Twitter is. So or like YouTube, like we have a YouTube channel, hockeyprospect.com, and We have video coming out. We have a goalie podcast out. We're gonna have like other video before the draft. So and then during the year we did like a weekly podcast. Me, my colleague Brad. So people can check that out. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Again, merci beaucoup. Bonne fin de semaine. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and good luck next week. And maybe we can talk again sometime.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Have a great one.